All right, everybody, we are officially live. So thank you to everybody who's tuning in at the Williams Pavilion and our other senior centers through the Hannan Center. Welcome. Today is Wednesday, and we will begin our session. So how we're going to do this today is I'm going to first talk to you guys a little bit about last week. We're going to talk about what we had, just do a little follow-up. I'm going to get into our produce boxes, and we'll do the recipe, and then we'll do a discussion at the end. So anybody who has questions throughout, if they're super pertinent or important, feel free to raise your hand, but we're going to ask to keep your questions and discussions till the end when we have a designated spot, and then we'll have a little microphone to pass around. So we'll get right into it. So again, welcome everybody who is tuning in. I will be beginning my cooking demo in just a quick moment. But I would like to start with our produce boxes today. So, put it right here so those can see. All right, so today I tried super hard to include every single item in this box with our recipes today. So today, instead of just one recipe, I'm actually going to do two of them. So one of them is going to be a Veggie Black Bean Quesadilla. And then the other one is going to be a Waldorf salad. Okay, so like we mentioned with our produce boxes, it's usually about half vegetables, half fruits. So it's a lot easier to cook with the vegetables than it is to cook with fruits, in my opinion. So that's why we decided to do something else. So if I'm not mistaken, today we will be using all except for one or two ingredients. So this is what we got. We have some grapes, some blueberries, some limes, apples, Brussels sprouts, green pepper, sweet potato, broccoli, carrots, kale, and red onion. So we're going to use majority of them. I think the only thing that I was not able to incorporate was the sweet potato. I believe that is it. So that'll be in there. I would like to mention too that in addition to our recipes, for those of you who don't know or got a produce box for the first time last week, there is going to be a recipe on the front of this paper, and this is strictly from Eastern Market. So Eastern Market, they came up with this recipe. That is theirs. They're usually super wonderful, tasty, and related to what you have in your produce boxes. And we'll also be having two more. So those of you who are in person, you'll get these handed out to you. The ones for the two recipes that we'll be cooking together. And those who are tuning in, these two will also be in your produce box with your piece of paper. All right, I just wanted to explain that real quick, just so we know where to look for what. And lastly, for those who are tuning in, when you get your produce box, hopefully you can see this. There's a QR code on the top of the box and a little HTML or what you'd type into your web page to get to our YouTube channel. So it'll look just like that. All right. So, going back to last week's produce box, did anybody use or unable to use anything from their produce box last week?
You said unable?
Unable to use, or something that you used super quickly? Anybody wanted to comment on anything about last week's produce box? Anybody? We had a lot of good stuff in there. What did we make last week? Who remembers what we made last week? Yeah, we made the veggie wrap. So there were a bunch of veggies in there. Did anybody make a wrap since then or take any inspiration from there and make it? Anybody? No, that's okay. Does anybody want to share some recipes that they made in the last week with their produce box? You must have had to use it for something, right?
Oh yeah, I made the collard greens.
You made the collard greens? Okay.
And I used
The mushrooms? Yeah, what did you guys use with the mushrooms? You baked the mushrooms? That sounds good. That sounds good. I make a thing called tater tot casserole, if anybody's ever heard of it. Anybody ever heard of it? Well, it was my favorite thing growing up. I would always ask for it for my birthday dinner. My mom would always make it. But it's tater tots, ground turkey or beef, cream of mushroom soup, and tater tots. If I didn't already say that. So it's those ingredients, and make it into a little casserole, and you bake it. And you spread it with some cheese. But that's what I used my mushrooms for. I used all my mushrooms for those. So you just eat them like that. Okay. Nice. Stir fry. Yum. Okay. Yeah, I'm not a fan of eating mushrooms on their own. But maybe I'm just not having it the right way on their own, right? All right. So I'm going to start getting into the cooking demo. You guys ready? All right. We're going to do the quesadillas first, and then we'll go into the Waldorf salad. So what I'm going to do is ask if somebody would help me pass out the recipes to whomever. We'll start. I guess we could maybe just pass out both of them if Diana's near, or we could just start with one and go from there. That works. Let me grab my gloves. All right, so Trish is going to be passing around the recipe. This recipe comes straight from Cooking Matters. So for those of you who were there last week and remember me mentioning Cooking Matters, it's an open access online resource. You can go on there and get all the types of recipes, printouts, and this recipe is straight from there. So you'll notice the nutrition facts. I think the reason it's not super high in sodium, it's got, I think per quesadilla, it's about, what does it say, 15%, 16% of your daily intake. That is with the salt that you're adding into it. So it specifically says to add salt, but you can obviously add less if you're concerned about the sodium. Decent in carbs, pretty high in fiber. And that also helps because we're going to be using whole wheat tortillas. And let me see, 12 grams of protein. That's pretty decent. You could always, we're not putting any meat in it today. We're just doing veggies and beans. But if you wanted to buff it up a little bit, make it into a more substantial meal, you could include a meat source of turkey or ground beef. You could even do chicken, whatever you do. You could do shrimp. Yeah, really though. You could do more beans. So what we're going to use today is we're using black beans. Black beans are pretty high in fiber, pretty high in protein. You're going to want to rinse these before you use them. If anybody's ever cooked with beans before that are already in a can. So these are canned. They are canned, yep. So any of you who are familiar with canned beans, they have a lot of liquid in them. So you're going to want to make sure you rinse them. So once you rinse them, it'll make them so that they're not as soggy. You see, they're just beans. They're not in like any liquid. 'Cause liquid's kind of thick, and I don't know. That also adds to the sodium too. If you ever have canned goods, there's always going to be some kind of salt that's absorbed by the vegetables, but the liquid itself that the vegetables are like suspended in the can, that has a lot of sodium in it itself. So a way to cut down a little bit, it's not a lot, but you can strain and rinse your vegetables if you're getting them from a can, and it would be a little bit less sodium than if you would just incorporate all the juices into what you're cooking. So what you're going to do is, in a colander, drain and rinse black beans. I already did that. So I just took these out, put them into a colander or a strainer, sprayed them, mixed them around until they were just beans. And then you rinse the zucchini. So you'll notice there's 3 things that I substituted today. Does everybody see that? I said I put them in.
Zucchini up there, so you must have substituted that.
I sure did. Yep. So instead of zucchini, we're going to be using a Brussels sprouts.
Oh, okay. That's great. I like it.
Instead of spinach, I'm going to be using kale because there's kale in our produce boxes this week. Like I said, I'm trying to incorporate everything in our box this week. Yes.
Is there anything that makes the kale a little tender?
Is there anything that helps make the kale a little bit more tender?
Yeah, when I have that, it's kind of rough when I put it in salad.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Like too chewy, kind of? The only way that you could chop it up smaller or steaming it.
Or you can massage it with a little olive oil
Ah.
and leave it sit.
for 10 minutes. That really softens it up.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So tips to make kale less
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
You can massage it with some olive oil. Yeah, you could steam it, chop it up into smaller pieces. All of the above. And let's see, instead of corn, I substituted carrots because we have carrots in our produce boxes this week. So everything else stayed the same. All right, so you're going to rinse the zucchini and you're going to cut it into thin slices or shred it with a grater. Since we're using Brussels sprouts, I just chop them up into little bits, little pieces like that. I'll cut up a couple so you can kind of see how I did it. Because with Brussels sprouts, there's like the inside that's a little tough. It's got like the part where the stem is. So it's kind of hard to work around that unless you're just going to peel them. So that's one way, which is an act like a work of love. It's more time consuming. Or you could just chop it. So what I do is, I chop it down until it's about halfway, and then I just go for it. And then you can either discard this piece, or some of you might notice I did include them. I tried to get rid of some of it, but there are going to be little pieces. I don't know, I think it adds a little bit of crunch. It's not going to hurt you, but I did get rid of the super hard parts that nobody wants. So just going to kind of want to chop it up like that. Everybody can kind of see how finely I did it. Or again, you could always just tear off the leaves and cook them that way. I've seen some people take off the leaves of Brussels sprouts and put them in salad. You could or you could just make, you said chips like that?
Yeah, you can put them in the oven.
Roast them.
Ooh, that's a good idea. Well, speaking of roasting, has anybody ever made kale chips?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, they do. But you can make them in the oven easy. Just, again, rub them with a little olive oil, stick them in the oven.
Interesting.
Like the curly kale.
All right, so speaking of kale, we're going to use kale instead of spinach this week. You can make kale chips. I've seen people. Kale is also really good in salad. I make kale salad all the time. I've also been really into arugula salad lately.
Oh, yeah.
It's really good. It adds a little bit of a spice. All right. So we got the carrots. You'll notice I got pre-packaged carrots, matchsticks. So they're just a little bit, just making my life a little bit easier. So I got those. And then we're going to start getting cooking. So I'm going to start heating up the oil. Now I'm sure you guys remember, I like to mention it all the time, oil cooks or heats up pretty quick. And especially when you're cooking with different types of olive oil and avocado oil. They have different burn temperatures. So you should always be careful whatever oil that you're working with to make sure that, if you're using olive oil to coat your pan that you're going to put in the oven at 450 degrees, it's probably going to smoke because it has a higher combustion temperature than other oils might. Does that kind of make sense? You got a question back there?
Someone to adjust the mirror.
Can we get somebody to adjust the mirror? Yeah, perhaps I don't want to mess with that. Yeah, so we got a camera up there.
I think it's obstructed right now.
And I think that, oh yeah, that thing's, I don't think there's a way to do that, unfortunately, this week. But I will just tell you in super deep detail what I'm doing, okay? So just visualize it. All right? But maybe next week, we'll try to see if we can't work around that, because I know that's super handy, being able to see.
Yeah. So, Jake.
Yes.
The sweet potatoes that are in the box,
Yes.
you could cut those up in small cubes and include them.
You totally could.
You could.
I thought
It's
about
just a
that.
thought.
I did think about that. If there wasn't a slight time constraint, I would have absolutely done that.
Yeah, or people could, a lot of times I just pre-cook my sweet potatoes and then use them in different recipes.
Ooh.
Or mic them and then add it to something. It was just a thought, just to use all the stuff in the
No,
box.
totally.
Yeah. Gives a sweet flavor. Yeah.
Actually,
Yeah,
don't know
he's
where
using
my
all
keys
of them.
are at this moment in time. Yeah. They should be around here somewhere, though. No, that's Trisha's. I don't know where they are right now. I'm sorry, Deanna. All right, so I'm going to heat up the tortilla. Just what I'm doing right now. I'm going to get that a little bit crispy. Then what you want to do in another skillet is you want to heat the oil, add in the Brussels sprouts, the kale, and the carrots. You're going to cook them a little bit. Then you want to add the black beans towards the end. Now, if anybody has ever made quesadillas before, you might notice that one of the toughest, it's super easy to make, but one of the toughest parts about it is flipping it. Anybody have ever experienced that? Yeah, because everything just like plops out, and then you got to scoop it all back in, or it just like rips. So a way kind of around that is to fry up the tortilla first, and then the mixture that you're going to be adding into it, frying that up as well. So like cooking them separately rather than putting it all in the tortilla to cook it in the tortilla. That kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense?
Yeah.
So what you're going to see me do today is I'm going to cook up the vegetables over in this pan. I'm going to add the beans to it, and I'm going to kind of like make it into like a mixture mash. So when I put it into the tortilla, it's already all mashed up. It has some what's the word? Holds on to itself. You know, I forget what that word is I'm thinking of. Cohesion. That's a good word for it. Yeah, it's got some cohesion. So I'm going to cook all that up. Let me see where my... All right, so while we're waiting for that, I'm going to keep an eye on the tortilla. I'm going to start talking about the Waldorf salad. So perhaps, Diana, if you'd be so kind, would you pass out this recipe as well?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, but you guys have both of them?
Yep.
Oh, perfect. That's great. Thanks for doing that, Trish. All right, so we'll switch to the Waldorf salad. We'll talk about that because this is going to take a couple of seconds to heat up. So the Waldorf salad, what I used is we have the apples, we have celery. Instead of raisins, I have dried blueberries and dried cherries. Raisins are good. Raisins have their place, but I thought we should mix it up a little bit. And I did X out the walnuts. So like I mentioned, I do try to stay away from the main allergens, but going forward, you can totally add walnuts to it. I know, they are pretty good. Instead of walnuts, you could always add pecans. You could always add any kind of nuts, really. Instead of raisins like I'm doing, you could add you could do peanuts. It's not a bad idea. You have sesame seeds? I use sesame seeds a lot for like fried rice. So one of my favorite easy go-to meals is some brown rice with some veggies, maybe some egg or turkey, sesame oil, and sesame seeds. And it tastes so good.
I guess the gold.
What, sesame seeds? I'm sure they have some kind of like fiber, maybe some protein, but I don't think that much, personally. I don't think that there's that much. All right, so what we're going to do is I'm going to make a quesadilla. I'm going to make this stuff, and then around 12:30, I'm going to kick it into overdrive and start whipping them out for you guys, okay? So this is kind of the demonstration that I'm doing first, and then we're gonna switch gears about 12:30. I'll likely say my closing statements for those who are tuning in, and then we'll start whipping these out for you guys. How's that sound? Sound okay? All right. You could. I feel like the main difference is the sweetness level is all that I've... You like the sweet? Let's see what I got. I did get Hellman's. Okay. Well, yeah, we got Hellman's today. I don't know why I
Sugar.
You do add some
You
sugar
add
to it.
Sugar,
Yes.
so maybe that.
Oh, wait a minute, you got white sugar, okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got some sugar I'm gonna add to it. A little bit of lemon juice for some zest. And then
Yeah, we did quite-
so one thing I will say about kale, it holds its shape super well. So rather than like when you're cooking with spinach, the more you cook it, the less room it takes up. With kale, I haven't really noticed that much. It kind of just takes up the same amount of space no matter what you do to it. Except if you're like baking it, I feel like, and then it shrivels up a little bit. All right, so my veggies are cooking. I'm gonna season it with some black pepper and some salt. I'm gonna mash it a little bit. I'm gonna add some water, so the water is just gonna help make that kind of paste. And then I'm gonna pop it in my my tortilla with some cheese, and then that's that. And then that's pretty much that. If you wanted to make this into a more substantial meal, like I said, you could always add meat to it. We haven't even talked about sides, like what kind of sides you can have with quesadillas. Anybody have any suggestions? You could do French fries.
Rice.
You could do rice. That's a good one. That's nice and healthy. Oh, you could do salad. You could do a little bit of pasta. Let me see. I would probably do, I think, if you look in the picture, pretty sure I included a picture. Yeah, if you guys look at the picture of the quesadillas, you'll see in the background there's like a little pile of something. So if this was colored, a colored photo, you'd probably be able to see it easier. But since it's not, I'll just tell you what it is. And yeah, I think it's like a pico de gallo. It had like some peppers and it looked like onion and all that fun stuff in it. All right. I'm gonna mash it, make it into a little bit of a kind of a paste. Now a masher is a lot easier to use, but I mean, I'm making do with this tool. So if you don't have a masher at your house, you could always use the back of a fork. You could probably use the back of like a rubber spatula or even a regular spatula or a masher. Okay. So you know what? Actually, I take back my comment about the kale, because once you start mashing it up and mixing it around, the kale does actually kind of turn into... Yeah, it loses some of its shape a little bit. All right. We're going to add some cheese to our quesadilla. Ooh, that's perfect. I don't know how you guys usually like your tortillas. I like them a little browned, but not burnt. And when I say browned, I mean kind of like right around there, where like you can still fold it and it won't like crumble, but you still get like a little light crunch when you enjoy it. So this is good for me. That's about what I'm going to be shooting for today. I'm going to add a little bit of cheese. Now I like to add the cheese first, so that all the hot veggies in the quesadilla kind of melt it together. I don't know, I feel like it helps not make a huge mess. Kind of hard not to. Can anybody tell me one pivotal thing I forgot to do? I didn't season it. You guys weren't watching me close enough, were you? Yeah, I was going to do salt and pepper. I didn't do it, though. I got it right here. Yeah. You got to keep your eye on me. Can't have no unseasoned quesadillas. All right. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on there. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit on here.
So you can't use salt, you use the vegetables and the...
Oh, Mrs. Salt or Mrs. Dash.
Yeah, Mrs. Dash.
Something like that.
Instead of the salt.
You could. Yeah, and I also was at the store not too long ago, and there's like potassium chloride alternatives to salt. There's like MSG, which is an alternative. Now, all of those alternative salts, I would do your research on them, and make a decision on how if some of what they say about them. Sometimes they say that they can have adverse health risks with alternative salts, but I think anything in moderation, because salt itself is also not great too much. So, all right, so here's the quesadilla. Everybody check her out.
Beautiful.
Everybody look.
All
right, so
right.
that's usually why I wait until the end to put all the stuff in there, is because now, like,
Wow.
it's straight up holding on to itself. So,
All right.
thank you. All right, I'm gonna knock out this salad real quick while I still have you guys. No, actually, I think I'm just fine. This one's pretty easy. All right, so now we are gonna switch gears over to the Waldorf salad. If everybody would switch to it. So this is hot, so I'm not going to place anything else on the stove. Can you guys still see in frame like this, looking down? Or not so much? Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, I can make that work. All right, scoop some stuff around. All right, so for the Waldorf salad, we have some apples. You're going to want to peel them and slice them. This is a lot easier if you have like a peeler or one of those things where you just like push down on it. If you guys know what I'm talking about, slices the, yeah. Is that what it's called? Okay. Yeah, those are super easy for coring apples. It might be silly to say, but you're going to want to, if you're skinning your apples, you're going to want to do that before you core it, just for the obvious. Say again? Do you have to what?
I like the whole.
You like the skin?
Yeah.
You can totally keep the skin. Yeah, it's all about preference. I'm not a huge.
And plus it adds color also.
It does. Yeah, and this recipe, it did call for peeled, cored, and chopped, so I just went along with it. But I mean, you could genuinely do what you would like. Make any kind of substitute. Say again?
A lot of fiber in the skin.
Oh yeah.
But you might want to just make sure you wash your apples well, because who knows what's.
Oh sure. All right. So what you're going to do is gather all the ingredients. Step one done. You're going to whisk together the mayo, sugar, lemon juice, and salt together. So let me find a bowl, and we'll whisk those together. Let me see. I feel like I'm using up everything we got. All right, for time's sake, we're going to mix it in a little container. All right, so you're gonna whisk together the mayonnaise, the sugar, the lemon juice, and the salt. Now, last night I actually did juice these lemons myself, but if you don't want to, you can obviously always buy the little pre-juiced lemon juice things. It says it called for about a teaspoon of lemon juice. I'll throw that in there. It's gonna call for, let me see, a tablespoon of sugar. Now you don't have to use white sugar. You can really use any kind of sugar you want, depending on what your preference is. Do not mix up tablespoon and teaspoon. I do that every once in a while, and I've learned my lesson at this point. So make sure you do a teaspoon of lemon juice. We're going to do a tablespoon of sugar. So they're using these little packets. I believe 2 packets is equivalent to a tablespoon. We'll see if I'm right. Yeah, about two packets is equal to a tablespoon. And then you're going to do 1/2 cup of mayonnaise. Now, I had somebody mention what kind of mayonnaise did I use. And I used just regular Hellmann's. You're just going to mix that all together. And now last night I went ahead and I chopped up all the veggies ahead of time. So I'm going to make this mixture. I'm going to mix it all together. And then we're gonna be all set. Okay. All right. So you want to mix that together. This is like this is what the sauce is. And then you're going to stir in the apples, celery. I included grapes because we have grape in our produce boxes. So I'll add that to that. Good catch. See, you don't want any unsalted, unflavored, nothing. All right, so we got grapes, apples, celery. And then I also have, let me see, where's the salt and pepper? I'm just gonna do a little bit. And then the dried berries. Okay. Mix that all together. All right, so there you have it. Let me throw it on a plate. And that is what I have for us today. We made a little quesadilla with some Waldorf salad. Now, Waldorf salad, I just wanted to make something that included the fruits that we were making. And there you have it. Perfect. All right. And there you go. All right, so there you have it. Veggie Black Bean Quesadillas and Waldorf salad. I'm going to say goodbye, and I will see anybody who's tuned in later on this afternoon with your produce boxes. And for the rest of you, we're going to start cooking up and getting stuff going here and passing it out, okay? So you guys sit pretty, feel free to chat amongst yourself. But before I do that, does anybody have any questions, comments, suggestions, thoughts, ideas?
Yes. My mother, bless her soul, she's 92 years old.
Mama.
Her name Gertrude Marks.
Ow.
She has always told me there should be no salt or sugar in your home. So what do you recommend as substitutes? Because many of us have high blood pressure from the salt.
Absolutely.
And the sugar affects your arteries.
Absolutely. So, some good substitutions for sugar, fruits and vegetables. Natural sugar versus artificial sugar. Depending on your diet, if you have to avoid sugar altogether, that would be a little tough to do. But if you're trying to avoid artificial sugars, added sugars, and all that stuff, fruits are super good. And if you're trying to avoid salt, herbs are really good for adding flavor. But if you really crave that saltiness, I mean, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think any doctor is going to say you can't have any salt, period. I haven't had a doctor tell me that. It's possible, but with that instance, it just comes down to reading the labels, being super careful and cautious, reading nutrition facts, making sure you stay within the daily percentage or the numbers. So a good way to avoid it is making an effort and seeing what you're putting into your body, using herbs to add flavors to it. Stacking foods are really good. What I mean by that is like adding a bunch of different foods together to try to get a flavor profile that might help you not think that it's so bland. And sugar, I would incorporate fruits. I don't know if that answered your question. Did I get all that? Does that kind of make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is it true that you can't do nothing without salt or sugar because that's your flavoring?
It's your flavoring, and also, I mean, your body to an extent relies on those. They rely on it. I mean, there's a reason salt exists. You know, your body relies on it for certain, functions. But the issue is too much, because they put so much because it tastes so good. I'm not even going to lie and say it doesn't, because it does. But they add so much to it where it becomes unhealthy. So I could use some help at this time for whomever is willing. We're going to, whoever wants to take over the Waldorf salad.
Okay.
Plant-based sugar.
Plant-based sugar?
Would that be a good alternative for sugar?
Could be. Yeah, you could do the plant-based sugar, which I totally could have mentioned. That's like stevia, yeah. Any of those other ones. Or honey. I like the way you think. It is still sugar. Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. If you're trying to stay away from artificial sugar, if you're trying to stay away from added sugar, it could really make a difference depending on what it looks like for what you substitute it with, you know.
Lemon pepper.
What about lemon pepper? It's good. Lemon pepper?
I don't use salt.
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Finding substitutes other than salt that add flavor to it, because for me, salt isn't necessarily about like the way it makes me feel or what it does to me. It's how it tastes, you know, how it enhances the food that I'm eating. So lemon pepper could help cut down on salt because it has flavor in it.
Well, and as you get more accustomed to not using salt or cutting your sodium down, other things will taste way too salty.
Oh, totally.
So you get used to it. Yeah, I mean, like potato chips and stuff like that. I can't.
Yeah.
Brands I cannot eat.
Yeah,
It's too salty.
I'm
And
with
it's
you.
You know, I've acquired that because I really started watching the salt.
That's what it comes down to is effort. You gotta be careful. I'm so sorry.
These, right?
Yeah, well, what I meant to say was, would you mind making more of the sauce? So maybe making like
Oh, okay.
2 more batches of the sauce for this, because I did go ahead
We
and
think we have enough? All right.
I think we should.
2 more batches of the sauce.
Yeah. Hi, Emily. Hi. Yeah.
Well, maybe
I said goodbye, didn't I? Didn't I say goodbye and I said? Say it again. We're going to do it. Okay. All right, here we go. All right. For those of you who are tuning in, I will see you later on today through your senior centers. I will be dropping off produce boxes in the next hour and a half to 2 hours or so. So reach out to your coordinator. Make sure that you are home, and I will be there with your produce boxes, with your recipes, and a friendly smile. So I will see you guys then. Take care. We will be doing this again next week at the same time, same format on YouTube, same live video. So we will see you then. Oh, yeah.